8%. So that's a pretty good growth in number of positions. The year before, there was 11% growth in positions. As far as our applicants go, there was a significant change, I would say. Many of you know we've had a significant growth in the number of applicants each year. The last 2 years, we've grown by 14% each year. And this year, it was only 6%. So there's a little slowing down, perhaps, of the number of additional applicants, but we still have more applicants than we had the year before. Can I have the next slide? The one thing we did notice, and when we talked to the applicants, what is happening is they wait until the night of the deadline. To them, the deadline is the deadline, and why would they submit something before? So we did have a lot of programs, I believe, that were panicked or very nervous in December because they weren't getting any applications. But what we're finding is these applicants wait very late, even till like 11:58 at night, to go ahead and finally submit their applications. So people are seeing a bolus of activity really close to their actual application deadline. We really don't know. This will be the first year that we actually will get statistics on how many programs people are applying to. We don't have any statistics prior to this year, so we really don't know how this compares to other years, and we don't know if we can say anything is because of forecast or other reasons. We'll just know when we're done here this year. This will be our first baseline year with data that's here. Can we have the next slide? We tried to do a lot of proactive education, and we tried a couple of different methods. One was the YouTube videos that we tied. There were different ones for the applicants, the programs, and the reference writers. And you can see, this is back on January 8th, how many people viewed the different videos that we had. So that was one media that we used. We are aware that some of the hospitals and cannot view YouTube while you're there, so that can't be our end-all medium for education. We also use Facebook for the applicants, so once we would find a problem or an issue or a tip, it would get pushed out through Facebook, and many of our applicants were getting information through that avenue. Can I have the next slide, please? We do know that at customer service and forecast, we tried to anticipate. I mean, we all knew that the last 2 weeks in December are a busy time for our applicants, and we tried to anticipate, but I don't think we anticipated well enough for the types of volumes of activity that we got during those 2 weeks. So basically, in case some of you were involved in this, there were times when the phone lines got overloaded. There were long delays waiting on the phone lines for some of the people during, depending on when they called. We did have long delays in returning some email messages, and that resulted in some standard emails. You know, if you're having upload problems, we hope you resolve them or do the following. Couple that with those 2 weeks had 2 major holidays that the customer service staff was closed on both the holiday and the eve of the holiday. It really limited the amount of customer service hours that we had. And I think this resulted in significant frustration by all parties, both from our side's calling and the liaison or the forecast side trying to deal with all of the volume too. Just of note, on the liaison side, those folks did triple their staff. I think they had over 35 people answering phones on some of the days. They pulled in managers. They pulled in people from other services at times. And although they tried to do quick training, if some of you got involved with you, kind of wondered if they knew the answer or to help you, they may have given you some advice that might have been related to another CAS service because they were pulled in last minute to help with the volumes that we had. So we acknowledge that this is a problem. We know we need to fix problems so we don't get so many calls, to reduce the calls, and we know that we need to look at the coverage for next year. So we acknowledge that this is one of our issues that we need to deal with. Can we have the next slide, please? What I want to do now is give you what were the biggest problems we found and what we found along the way and how we tried to fix it. What we find is many people remember these problems from the past. They think they're still there, but we've actually resolved many of the problems, so that's why we wanted to share them with you today. The foremost problem for us is really the uploads of data. And what you need to know about the ASHP forecast system is, I guess out of all the CAS systems that Liaison has, we have the most number of uploads in the system. So instead of us requiring our applicants to type everything into the system, we were allowing uploads of CVs, uploads of different documents, supplemental material, reference writers. And that really was our major problem with this particular system. So along the way, we found different things that were causing problems. So these were the tips that we would find, and we kept trying to communicate out to the different users what was going on. So for example, you needed, if you were in Internet Explorer 8 or Mozilla Firefox, you had an easier time doing uploads. We found some people that would save a document in docx, but it had to be saved down into .doc. The PDFs became a problem because there were different ways that you could actually create a PDF. And basically in PhORCAS, what's happening is all those files get compiled into a master PDF at the end. And so if that master file can't read a certain type of PDF, then it causes problems for that master file that you get at the end in the selection portal. So basically, things that we found, we had to tell people that they had to decrease the resolution of some of these PDFs that they were doing so that they would meet our file size. They had to save it down in Adobe Acrobat, not in the Adobe Reader. We also had to, finally, there was a PDF generator that the PhORCAS staff found that you could actually use, and they loaded that onto the screen. So by 12/28, I believe it was, we actually put that on the screens anywhere there was an upload. So people would just use the little PDF generator that was kind of built into the link in PhORCAS. Then those were automatically accepted and did not have problems. We also found that if people save file names with different symbols in it, that would cause problems as well. And I think it really was the biggest impact on the reference writers, more so than our applicants. Our applicants seemed to deal with it better. But our reference writers would go in and then get frustrated and not be able to get their letters of recommendation in. So that was our biggest problem. So we are trying to do education on all of this. We changed narration on the actual PhORCAS pages wherever there's an upload. We added that link to that PDF converter. And finally, in the end, the PhORCAS staff, customer service staff, just finally would say, if you have it in an email, send it to us and we will upload it. So they continued to just upload documents for people who had trouble with the upload mechanism. So by far, this is our #1 issue that must be resolved before our launch next year. So we just know that this is the biggest issue with this product that we have right now. Can we have the next screen? The next thing that probably caused problems for people was the deadlines. We had announced, I think, everywhere in all of our communications that the deadlines would close at 11:59 on your deadline date, Eastern Time. And basically what we saw happening is it was closing on the date and not the time, so it closed at 01 on that date. Once we discovered this, it quickly got resolved. So by January 4th, that was resolved. Unfortunately, there was another, whenever you start changing program in a live program, you know, things can happen. So we did have individuals who had already selected some of your programs that on that date when the fix went in, if your deadline was January 4th, they were able to actually get in on January 5th into your data. So that was just one of those issues that finally got fixed, and I think the people got pulled out so that they couldn't continue to do that. But it was just something we found when the fix went in. The next thing that we identified was really if you were in your selection portal and you went in and it looked like your deadline date was closed. So say your deadline was today. It's January 25th. If you went in on January 25th in your selection portal, it would say closed because it was based on a date and not on a time. But keep in mind, the applicants could continue to send you applications all the way up to 11:59 on this date, January 25th. So that's been resolved. So by January 16th, even in your selection portal, it's tied to a time and a date, just not a date. So now everything is running off of this 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, close time on whatever date your deadline is. Applicants cannot upload new supplemental data after they e-submit to your program. There have been rumors that people have been able to do this. It appears that when they are able to do it, it was because there were corrupt files and they were able to fix them and send something on. But this system was built so that once you e-submit, it's too late to add more supplemental data. So if they didn't submit your supplemental data, then they are not able to resubmit that and get it into your system. In the beginning, we were a little bit nervous about if you changed your deadline, maybe we needed to make sure the online directory was the same, so truth in advertising to the applicants. We soon realized with everything going on, it really didn't matter what you did in the ASHP online directory. What mattered what was happening in PhORCAS. Because if you opened up your deadline, then the people could still get their applications through. And when they went to the portal where the actual applicant would pick your program to actually apply, they could see that your deadline was still available and it would show your new deadline date. So we quickly said, don't even worry about the ASHP online directory. If you want to open your deadline, just go ahead and open your deadline. People will see it in PhORCAS, so it's not a problem. So that was the deadline issue. Can we have the next slide? Probably the third problem that we saw is that on our reference writer section, we had 2 narrative sections, and we actually even encouraged people that really the intent of a letter could get placed into the second narrative box, but it was cutting off so you couldn't see the rest of their narration. This was resolved, and we didn't lose any of the data anywhere, but we do have programs that if you printed anything prior to January 4th in the selection portal, you may find in the reference section, it looks like it's cut off some of the description and maybe those narrative boxes. That's all been resolved. So if you print anything now after that time period, all the narration is there and nothing is truncated. But people were panicking that we had lost data, but it is all there, and now you can see everything in both those narration boxes. Can we have the next slide? Another piece of information is we have these 3 demographics that if you're in an educational system, there's no problem collecting this data. And that is the date of birth, what gender are you, and your ethnicity. And we are collecting this behind the scenes for ASHP. But really, if you are hiring individuals, we wanted to make sure there could be no allegations that there was any discriminatory hiring practices. So if you noticed it was there in December, and now all of a sudden you go back and notice this data is not there, it has been repressed from all of your the programs so that you cannot see this data on your applicants. We do have it behind the scenes. We will look at it in total. We do know some of the programs that have a master's program that maybe are feeding data over into an educational system. We may need to work with them offline about how to get this data over to them. But just to make sure no one could be accused of any of these allegations of discriminatory practices, we did remove these 3 demographics from all of your fields, so you're not seeing that anymore. Can we have the next slide? The next thing we saw is what's tricky in PhORCAS is we actually have 3 different portals. So the programs go into one, which is called the selection portal. If you're a reference writer, you go into another one, that's the evaluator portal. And then the applicant has a third one. And if you think of in the fall, our applicants were the ones that were actively using PhORCAS. So we had many people would just Google the name PhORCAS, and they would come up with a portal, and they would try to sign into it. And yet they were a reference writer, or they were a program director or preceptor. And you can't go into the applicant portal unless you are an applicant. So anytime you would get something about it's asking about your security question, you said, well, I never had a security question. It's because you're trying to get into the applicant portal. So we had to do some education with people on making sure they were going into the correct portal to get the correct information that they needed. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. It was one of the things that we saw happening for some of our people. Can we do the next slide? The next thing we want to talk about is the selection portal, and that's where most of you are right now, and you're in there working. The one thing we do want to say is all applicants that are in your portal, whether they are in the completed or in progress, are very serious candidates. They've either made your deadlines, they should have all their core information, and the only thing that should be missing is either a transcript or a reference form from one of their reference writers. As far as the transcripts, when we built PhORCAS, we built it so that all college transcripts could go in there. But what happens is if a person puts all their colleges that they've attended, and I remember talking to somebody who has 5 different colleges they attended, if we don't see one transcript from those 5 colleges, then PhORCAS is saying it is not complete. Now maybe you don't care because it's not a pharmacy transcript, but still PhORCAS, the way it's working is it's looking for one to match each of the colleges that the person put into the system. So that's why some of those people are sitting in the in progress section. Now you can review anybody who's in progress or complete. It's your decision what you want to do with them. But I would just say they're all serious contenders for your program, so take a look at all of them. The other thing that we had that people were nervous that they actually saw candidates that they thought were completed, then they moved to in process, and how could that be? This actually did happen, and it was because the PhORCAS staff was actually trying to help some of our reference writers. They would get a call that said the program didn't get your uploaded letter of reference along with your reference form, and so they would actually call the PhORCAS customer service staff. Customer service staff could enable them to go out and upload a document, and so if they went and helped this reference writer upload the document, at that time it became that they were not complete. As soon as the upload occurred, then they moved back to complete. So in January, the beginning of January, we did have some of these occurrences where customer service was helping our reference writers to give you what you wanted, those extra uploaded reference letters, and that did cause for just a short time people might move from one category to the next. But again, keep in mind the important thing is anybody in your portal, they paid to be in there, they have all your core elements that are there. There's either just this transcript or a pharmacy reference that's missing at this time. Can we have the next slide, please? The next thing we wanted to talk about, I don't think there's been questions here, but the residency program director has certain things that only they can do. And what you need to know is the person that was identified as the residency program director is whoever signed the National Matching Service Agreement. So I know we've had one case at least where it really wasn't the residency program director, but that is the person who got the sign-on code. So keep in mind next year, whoever is signing the NMS agreement, because it's asking for the residency program director to sign, is the one that gets the code to come into the selection portal. That person has the ability to add anyone else who can look at the data, and that person needs to assign passwords. So I'm assuming many of you are in that state now where that's already occurred. That person has the ability to open and close the site. So if the deadline has gone by and you decide you don't have enough applicants and you want to open it, you can close it and then put in a new deadline date. So the residency program director has to do that. And then for those of you who've been experimenting with the tags out there, it's really the residency program director who has to define how you're going to use those tags. I would say the most common things that we're hearing is that people are using reference reviewers' names. So like if Paul and Mary and Jim are going to do reviews for you, they would create tags for each of them, and they could tie certain, you know, you'll do the first 10, somebody else will do the next 10, someone else the next set. As far as anybody who has access, then those people can use those tags that are already developed. They can tag any of the people that they have based on reviewing the materials that they have. They can sort any data in PhORCAS based on any of the fields that we have or the tags. Many people have asked us, why did we have all the fields that we had? And it was basically so you could sort on any of the data in any of those fields that we have. These people can type any comments on any of the individuals that are in your portal. Again, doesn't matter whether they're in progress or completed. You can do the same with either group. You can enter what we call a decision status, but we just have some cautions to tell you about that because it's just one decision status that stays with the person, and whatever the last one is the one that stays with the applicant's status in that area. You can print or you can just view online application materials. You've probably learned by now you can either view individual items or you can view the whole document of a person. Just keep in mind it takes a while to create that document, and it can be very long if they have lots of transcripts in there. The person can change their own password when they're in there, and then there are different search functions that you can use. So if you're at a site that has a large number of applicants, you're probably going to find the search function will be most helpful to you. Can we have the next slide? This is just a screenshot of some of these when you go into the selection portal. Again, we're just reminding you here, there are 3 different areas of the statuses of your applicants. The first one is that application submission in progress. Remember, these people maybe are missing a transcript or a letter of reference. The second one is applications completed. That means those people have everything in that you can need. The only thing to keep in mind is PhORCAS cannot check for, if you ask for supplemental data, we don't know that. It's not checking for that. It's only checking for those baseline things that we built into everybody that's in PhORCAS. And then finally, you see that next group down there, Postmatch applications. That won't be used until the Postmatch process. So for now, you should see no data in that section. Can we have the next slide? This next slide is to try to show you that selection decision. These selection decisions are actually fixed descriptions. So this is not something that you can go and create new ones. You can't change them. You can't add new ones. And these were developed by the advisory group. So there's 13 descriptions that the advisory group thought you might want to use sometime during this process as you're reviewing all these candidates. So we'll certainly seek feedback on all of you if you think there's different choices we should use next year, but that's where these come from. Can we have the next slide, please? This is just showing you how one site has used this already. So all of their applicants, we've decoded the names so you don't see them, but they were all under review, except as they started reviewing the materials, many of you have a screening that you do, that if they don't pass that first screening, then they don't come and interview. So you can see they've already removed this candidate from consideration and the applicant number 2. So that one now is removed from their pool of candidates that they'll look at for interviewing. Can we have the next slide, please? This slide is just to show you there's 2 different ways that you can do searches. You can search data, and this is showing you all of the different fields. So you can select any of these fields, and you can search on any of them to try to find data that you need in here. Or you can go through this other area, which is called the application data download. And the application data download is really for those people who want to move things into Excel and want to divide things a little bit finer so that you can get different pools of people. So mostly used for programs that have a large number of applicants that are here. Can we have the next slide, please? One thing that we're finding, a lot of people are trying to search on the GPA search function. And currently, the GPA search function is somewhat limited because you can't really search for what our hope was, that you could just say, I want everybody that has like a GPA greater than 3.5, and you would get everybody from 3.5 to a 4.0. Basically, this is it's a computer, it's very technical, so it's just doing it by tenths. So this would give you anyone from 3.50 to 3.59. So what we've found is some of our users are using a different system to help find that. A couple of other comments we just want to note here is the GPA is a self-reported. So the applicant themselves is reporting that number. It's not coming off of the transcript, it's just a self-reported number. That number may have come from their last set of grades before their last semester was put in. PhORCAS does allow the latest semester to come in, and many people were either waiting until that came or they're allowing that new grades to come in. And so it may not directly match whatever the last set of transcripts are that came into you, because it is self-reported. And keep in mind, these guys were working in the system back in October. So it's probably whatever their GPA was back in that time frame. Can we have the next slide, please? So this is one way that Frank Palachek, who happens to be on our user group, recommended how he searches through all of his applicants. He uses that applicant download function, and when you use that download function, you pick at least 3 choices that you want to include in there, and he just always makes sure he chooses the pharmacy college one, which has the pharmacy college GPA, and that just happens to correspond with column I for the College of Pharmacy GPA. He'll print that list, and then he'll go back and tag the candidates that have the grade point that he wants. So we'll just show you quickly as we go to the next screen how that looks or how you do that. So basically, this is coming to the data download where you can pick the different pieces of information. And so this is what it will look like. Basically, it's an Excel spreadsheet, and then you can see to the right, you can do different sorts from A to Z or up or down, which can help you sort through all the data that you have. Can we have the next screen, please? So in this example, they've already picked who were their applicants, what pharmacy school did they go to. We've got, what date will they graduate, and then we have GPAs. And so what you're going to see, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Basically, he gets rid of all the extraneous columns and uses only the columns that he wants to see. And basically then we'll sort this last column based on the GPA. And so on the next screen, I think it is, if you can move to the next slide. This is resorted with the highest GPA on top going down. And then he would go in and tag everybody that's above a certain level that he wants. So this is just a way that you can kind of use that data download to kind of refine your searches on different applicants if you have a large number of applicants that are there. Can we have the next slide, please? This is just Frank's recommendation. Many of you may know Frank, but he really is a strong believer that if you have a lot of data, the application download data function is really your best friend, because you can slice and look at data any way that you want on any field that you want. So it really is a way for you to help sort down to get to the applicants that you want to look at if you're going to consider them for interview at your site. Can we have the next slide, please? There are limitations in this whole selection decision area. Remember, the selection decision area is that one where we have the fixed 13 decisions, and it's a choice that you put somebody into a certain status. It will only keep one status, and it doesn't keep the history of all the statuses, and it doesn't keep a history of who does it. So whoever puts that selection status in, that is the status that's going to display. So I just want you to be aware of that. So if you think there's a nice audit trail, there really is not in this area. The other thing to keep in mind is we're really recommending that if you want comments, that should go in the comments field, because the comments field will be saved, and that is where you can leave if you do a scoring of all of your candidates with your own algorithm internally. You can put that right there, and you could put who it was that did it and the date. And then all of those comments can be saved. So the comments field is probably your best way to document those for now. Unfortunately, we had a lot of ideas that we wanted to do with the selection portal, but we decided in year one we shouldn't get too crazy because we had already done a lot of other challenging things with this centralized application service. So we didn't put in an area for you to put scores in. But I think next year one of our recommendations is to actually put a field in so that if you score applicants at your own place, that you can actually put the scoring in. So that will be one thing that we'll be looking at. So that's pretty much the limitations of what we have there. Can we have the next screen, please? I want to tell you a little bit quickly about the Postmatch process. We hope none of you end up in the Postmatch process, but in case you do, this is to tell you what will happen during that time. Basically, on Friday, March 22nd, the results will come out. So you will know who's placed at your places. The applicants will know if they are placed at a place. On that day then, on March 22nd, the PhORCAS portal opens up again, and it already has preloaded everybody who has available positions post-match. So the participating programs will now be in that. If you've gone out to the applicant screen, you've seen participating programs, it will have a smaller group of programs, just those that actually have available positions at that time. I believe what we're going to be doing is actually presetting a deadline date for anybody that's in the post-match process, and then the residency program director can go out there, and if they want a different deadline date, they can set that at that time. During the weekend, the applicants can go out and they can update any of their information. They can create new letters of introduction that they're going to be sending to you. But on Monday then, it officially opens where they can start applying to your program. So Monday, March 25th is when PhORCAS will open, and you'll actually see applications coming across. The other thing that will happen on that Monday is when you, as the programs, will also see who are the applicants that are available. That is not coming out on Friday. It won't come out until that Monday. And then the other thing that we have going on in the match this year is that the Commission has really asked that people not make offers until 1 week. So we're asking that people not make offers until April 1st. And that way people can look at the different programs that they want to. It gives each side a chance to kind of talk to each other and decide if you're going to bring them in for interview or what you're going to do with them. So that's kind of the dates that are important in the post-match process. Can we have the next slide, please? As far as what the residency programs need to know if you're going to come into this area, the first thing is, like I said, I think we're probably going to default people maybe to like an April 1st date, anybody who's in the post-match process, but you can go out and adjust that if you want it sooner, later, whatever you want to do with that deadline date. So you can change that deadline date. One thing that's a little bit different, we have no in-process or completed. When you get in the post-match process, you are just going to see applicants come across. Most of these applicants have already been in PhORCAS. They already have their transcripts. They already have all their information. Probably the only thing that might be missing is if they get a new reference writer, you maybe are missing a reference piece. So you're just going to get them in one bucket. You're not going to have them separated into in-process and completed in the post-match process. There is an opportunity if you matched and perhaps you got a grant, you got more money in your budget, and you wanted to add more positions. There is an ability for you, since you participated in PhORCAS earlier, to actually go out and open up a new deadline so that you can also participate in the post-match, even though you filled all your positions in the match. So it does give you an opportunity to do that. The one thing you may remember last year, we had a dynamic list with the National Matching Service. We're trying to run that again so that we have that list plus PhORCAS in this year one to see how that goes. So we are asking people that if you are updating and you're adding new eligible positions, if you can also sign into your National Matching Service section and update that you have more eligible positions. Other things, NMS, if you close out your position, need to make sure you close it out in the National Matching Service, and you need to make sure if you fill your position, you have no open deadline in PhORCAS, so you have to make sure that you close it. And the final thing is we do get new programs all the time. There will be ability for new programs to come in and also participate in this post-match process if they happen to come in at that time. Can we have the next slide, please? There is some information in case you get questions from applicants. Basically, in the post-match, those who did not match are the ones who are eligible. However, we get the question, can new applicants come in that were never there? And yes, new applicants can come in if they were not there before. However, they must register with the match. And we all know the match has already gone by, but it's an integral part because we're interfacing back and forth with the match. So if you have somebody who never was in PhORCAS before, they still have to register for the match before they can actually e-submit to any of your programs in the post-match process. So those people, if you know of any of them, they can either sign up to the match before March 7th or on March 22nd or later. But the portals are going to be going down between March 7th and March 22nd. So we just need to remind these people if they're new to the game and they want to get in the post-match process as an applicant, they still do have to sign up for the match to be able to do that. There's another situation people have asked us about, and that is if someone applied to your program originally and you didn't match with them and you ended up in this post-match process, we are saying if those people are interested in your program, they can contact you to see if you would entertain them in the second post-match process, but they're already sitting in your portal. You already have all their information from the first time, so we're not having them reapply again. We're not having them pay again. You have the information there if you wish to consider them. So these folks, you actually may get an email or a phone call if you happen to be in one of these situations. The one thing to keep in mind is we can't be moving data from one section to the next. So if you happen to consider one of these, you can't grab their whole file in person and pull them down into that post-match section. You'll just have to know that their data is in the other section if it's there. Okay, can we have the next slide? This kind of moves us to the next phase, is that we will be seeking lots of input for, as we move forward, how to make PhORCAS better for next year. We are planning surveys that will go out to, one will go out to the applicants that we're currently working on. There'll be one to the reviewers, and then one to yourselves, the program directors. Again, we wanted to kind of share with you the fixes that we've had because we know that these have been problems there. But we will be seeking many opportunities. The other opportunity is we hope to get the advisory group, again, out to the regional residency conferences so that we can have dialogue with all of you about things that can help make it better. How can we do better education? How can we make better fixes to make this product better for everyone? We are going to be having a National Preceptors Conference on August 21 through 23rd this year. So we are going to an every year conference now. We used to be every other year, but we are starting this year to be every year. And we will provide education and a forum at that meeting, again, to talk about issues that are going on with PhORCAS. And one thing that we have heard from people is that we'll probably offer education at all levels, one that would be geared towards applicants, one towards reviewers, and then one towards people using the selection portal, that many of you are probably getting questions from the applicants. And since none of us had seen all the portals working in process before, none of us could really answer questions very well. But now that we have everything in place, we'll probably try to do education on all levels so people can learn about the 3 different portals and how they work. Can we have the next slide, please? The advisory committee has already met once, and they'll be meeting again next week. And we're already trying to plan for what needs to happen in the next steps. And just be assured that our #1 thing, both at the PhORCAS staff and the advisory group, is the upload issue. We really see we have got to fix this issue before next year's comes around again. And we either, if we cannot fix this right, then we've got to reduce the number of uploads that we have. But our overall goal and our plan is we want to fix the uploads so it's very easy for those uploads to go in so that we can continue to use them. The other one that we'll be seeking your input on is the transcripts. Many people said, I don't need all those other transcripts. Again, some do. So we may ask you if we just require pharmacy transcripts, and then you can say in your supplemental section if you want all of the undergraduate transcripts, that would be in addition. That would be something different. In the reference section, we will be reviewing the questions. Some of you may have noticed at the Preceptors Conference, the handout that we put out actually had 5 different questions, and by the time we went live, there were only 2 questions. So we're going to be reviewing those questions again, and we're going to review how people actually use the form. And we will be adding specifically on that section for reviewers, what is their position and their place of employment, because if they didn't write it in there somewhere, sometimes it wasn't being captured. We are looking into more ways if that actual letter of intent could be uploaded into the actual text box to get rid of this upload problem that we've had. But there's still concerns about cutting and pasting from Word because you're taking a multi-dimensional file into a flat file. So we've got issues either way, but we're trying to address those. As far as the selection portals, they've already identified. Many of you people are doing a scoring system of some kind, so we definitely are going to go after putting some kind of field in where you can put a score in based on how you've evaluated them, based on the tool that you're using. And then another rather major one for us is these programs. We have a program that has maybe multiple national matching service codes. Usually this happens in our community pharmacy area, or maybe it's a university is running a program, but they have 5 different sites. They each have a different NMS code. This whole system was built off of, as the NMS codes flowed across, they applied to those codes. And they're asking us whether or not we can roll back up to the ASHP code level. And so that may be a major issue for us, but we'll be investigating that one as well. Can I have the next slide, please? Again, I just want to thank, these are all the people, if you know of any of them, they really have been working hard over the last year to develop this product and to provide us educational materials and to try to follow through with people on what's going on. So they've really done a great job. It has been our first year, and although it was painful at times, I think we're at least identifying issues, fixing issues, and moving forward. So I think that's a good sign for all of us. And then finally, I think we're on the last slide, right? We really do thank you for all your patience. we really appreciate the feedback. When you provide us exact examples of something weird that's going on, then we can actually look into the data, we can fix the data, and we can find out what the problems are. So if you ever see anything that really looks strange, we really invite you to send that to us so that we can figure out what's going on, because it's been very helpful for us. And I think with that, Robert, do you have anything you want to add? And then we're going to go and see if there are questions from anyone that we can answer. So if you have questions, if you can please type those into the question area, that will be very helpful for us.
Absolutely, and I've been addressing a lot of the questions that have been coming in as Janet's been talking. There's been a lot of great questions. Some of them I left, but it looks like they're starting to come in some more, so this is great. Why don't we, do you want to start going through the questions now, Janet?
Yeah, can you read them? I'm having a little trouble seeing them still.
Sure, not a problem. The first question we have here is concerning, concern is the bolus of applications does not allow a lot of time for the organization to stagger our review of applications in order to not rush. Applicants have to purchase plane tickets. We had 98 applications. Any improvement to prevent this, prevent the bolus?
Yeah, the bolus is difficult. That's a tough question because what we are seeing is the applicants feel like if your deadline is that night, then that's the deadline. And they're not seeing any reason to get anything in sooner. Now, we can try to do a lot of education with them. We did try to push out, I think, 3 different times to them, please do not wait till the last minute and get your stuff in. But I'm not sure how effective it was. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that one, except that we know that that's what's going to happen now that we see what's happening right now. So if anybody has creative ideas, we're open on that, but we will be doing a lot of education to the applicants about please try to get it in way ahead of your application deadline.
I think that's going to be key. I agree, Janet. Education from both PhORCAS, ASHP, and the institutions themselves that are training the students on using the application. The sooner they get the applications in, it'll be better for them to use the system and everything. Next question is, why is there no tracking mechanism for the selection decisions? I can change the status, but there doesn't appear to be tracking for the different decisions assigned. This, we provided the comments field to be able to track any comments or any suggestions that the reviewers made. If they change, a simple suggestion would be if somebody does make a selection decision change, to simply make a comment of why they did that. And that way they know who did it, at what time, and why. We felt that this would also be very valuable within the comment section, and you wouldn't be able to search it if it was a multiple selection decision. And we felt that the ultimate selection decision or the current selection decision under a searchable field would be more valuable. We ask that reference writers give both the ASHP form and a general letter. Please allow for multiple documents to be loaded. I was getting mail and emails from reference writers, and multiple streams of entry were difficult to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, just so people know, I mean, our real intent was that that letter would actually be like an upload into the system, not an upload, but I mean, it would be in a text box in the system, but people are still convinced that I need this separate letter, whether it has letterhead or your signature or whatever. And that was the problem with the uploads. As you saw in this presentation, we kept finding different areas to fix the upload. So I think by next year, don't you think, Robert, we'll be better on that upload, so you shouldn't see what was happening here.
The multiple streams, I agree.
We're hoping that will really cut down. And if some of you still have emails out there with separate ones and you want it tied in, the PhORCAS customer service staff will load them for you to get them into your system if you need them in there. But I think we just had very frustrated reference writers that then just started sending them to people.
In the search portals, are you able to download an Excel spreadsheet with your search results? You are. You're able to render a search and then export just those applicants. That would be under the in the search screen. There is a field right under the bar that allows you to click and then download just those results. How long will data be available in the program of PhORCAS website? The information currently, so PhORCAS holds the current cycle and the previous cycle. So for next year, you'll have the 2012-2013 cycle and the 2013-2014 cycle. So the current cycle and the previous year's cycle.
I think the next one is for you about the uploaded letter. Is there any way an uploaded letter of recommendation could be placed right after the recommendation form completed by the recommender?
This has been brought up before. We are looking into, so the limitations with a form PDF and the way that we design the PDF is we're stitching a bunch of different documents together from different areas. So uploads, both from the applicant portal and from the reference portal and the actual body of the application. So there's a lot of moving parts that are going into creating this PDF, and we're also generating it on demand. So we're pulling it from multiple locations to be able to render one document on demand. And we're able to do this by attaching all the uploads at the bottom of the PDF. So what we're looking at is trying to reorganize the PDF and the uploads to look like they're displayed right after each other. This is something that we are looking for. We understand the need for the design. We are looking to make that happen for the next cycle.
There's another question. Can a program consider a post-match applicant who is not part of the match forecast? I mean, technically you could. I mean, we're trying to use the system to our max as we can, but technically you can. The only thing that we say is really to be fair to all the people that participated in this program. There are many people that they did participate in this program. They paid for the match. They paid for forecast. They weren't through the process. So we're trying to make it the same, that if we have these people who come late after the process and they don't do that, that's why we're making them go through the match and forecast and everything post-match. But it's technically up to you what you want to do with your applicants post-match.
This next question is, again, with the letter reference. So they required a letter reference in addition to the ASHP form. The system does not recognize the application as incomplete if the form, if the upload was not uploaded. So have you noticed an issue in larger audience or found any solutions?
Yeah, because what this is technically doing is that was considered like supplemental data, and so PhORCAS is not checking for any supplemental data because it doesn't know which ones have supplemental data or what you require. Robert, maybe can you address, are other programs putting the actual letter reference content into a text box so that they're avoiding this upload problem? Or?
So some other services, our health administration management policy, our dietetics, our psychology application, they don't allow for uploads, and what it is, it's just a plain text format. So you would just type in as if you were typing into Word, but you would be typing into the application. There are some limitations with this. You can't include graphics or signatures with the letter, but the information is there. And that's what a lot of our other services are doing.
This next one, probably, Robert, just so that you know, there is concern that, we require kind of a high level of Word and everything, but yet you have to save it down into .doc, or you have to save it down into a lower version. Is there any chance that the system will be able to handle like DocX or different versions of MS Word next year?
We do understand that, right, all the institutions, all facilities are moving towards the most current version of MS Word, which is the DocX, the 2010 version. We're looking to update our Predator servers along with our upload servers to be able to handle the DocX file. It's a file conversion update, and we're looking at making sure that all of our servers are up to date to be able to handle the most up-to-date information. We understand that this was a pain point for the uploads, and hopefully with the addition and the uploads patches that we have coming out for the next year, we'll be able to accommodate the DocX. That is something that we have looking at. For CAS-wide, all of our services have this limitation, so we're looking at updating it for all of them.
I think this next question has to do with the national matching process. And the national matching service and the rank order list will still happen with the national matching service. So none of that will happen within PhORCAS. So your rank order list, you're still going to get the information from the national matching service. You'll still continue to provide your ranks just as you always do in the national matching service. So none of that is actually going through this system. It's just really the applicants all registered for the match by going through PhORCAS. They come into PhORCAS and then they register for the match. And then we do have interfaces going back and forth with the two systems right now. I think we should probably address this one question that seems to come up frequently is I think there's confusion by the applicants that they believe they have to either all have 4 there to upload or they all have to be uploaded at the same time. And basically it's just they just have to just put one, Robert, maybe you can explain it better than me, but they designate which program and they can go singly, one program at a time that they pay and e-submit. They can do it one program at a time. The problem is if they pull a bunch of people into their designated field, then you have to do that group together. Is that right, Robert?
That's right. So the system's requirements is to just validate what is in, so it's just like a shopping cart. The system thinks you're trying to check out with all of those programs in there. The system is designed for the applicants to be able to check out with one designation, pay that $75, and still the system will still know that the applicant has 3 more designations before it'll incur the next fee. So if the applicant comes back a day later and picks 2 more designations, there still will be no fee. The next day they come back, pick 1 more designation, there still will be no fee. The system understands that. What the applicants seem to try to do is check out with all the designations that they want to apply to over all the time that they're interested in, and not understanding that it's like a shopping cart mentality, that they have to just pick the ones that they want to check out with right now.
Yeah, so we'll probably try to do better education on that side because there was confusion, I think, from our applicants on that. You might have heard some of that. Somebody's asking about options for getting more current transcripts. Basically, that's a function of the college. Depending on when their transcripts are out, I mean, they're applying in the fall, so they're getting all this data together in the fall, so it's whatever transcripts the college has at that time coming to the site. Now, we know that sometimes they update them because they're at the end of a semester, but those don't come through till like January, and you've got to have some kind of transcripts to be considered complete. So we encourage them to give whatever transcripts they have, and the newer ones can come through later. So it does allow a newer transcript to come through from a college if new transcripts come through with better dates or newer grades for applicants.
Going down, are applicants in the submitted or in progress status eligible for matching? So if you consider these applicants that are in the submitted sections and you rank them, then they would be considered, they are eligible. These applicants have applied to your site. It would be up to you whether or not you wanted to consider them for matching.
There is a question here, Robert, about is there an upgrade that can happen to email the RPD when applications come in, even a weekly summary, so that they know so they can work on them. We tried to not make this like ResiTrack, where you guys go crazy because we got emails all the time about something's happening, because you get bombarded probably at 11:59 the day before your deadline. So we really built this as you go in, if you want to daily or whatever you want to do to see if people are there. So I don't know, maybe we can add that question onto our questionnaire about what people think about being identified when things come in. We've really left it up to you guys to go into your portal to decide when you want to start working on things.
Do the applicants see the decisions made on their application? For example, if we chose under review or applicant invited for interview. The applicants do not see any of the decisions or tags or anything made within the selection portal. That is a completely inward-facing portal. The only way for the applicants to get any information out of during the process if you email them, and that would be emailed them directly from your whether it's Outlook or however system that you're using. So any selection decisions or tags or comments made are completely internal.
There is a concern about the pricing structure that we have currently. We really don't know if they were stingy or not. Until we're done, we won't know what the average number of applications are that people applied to. So we're waiting till the end to see what do we get finally with this. But we've heard haven't we, Robert? We've had somebody who's submitted quite a few applications who kind of hit our max ceiling that we had to work with. So I'm not sure they're all being super cautious financially. It kind of depends on the individual, I believe, at this time. But we're going to take a look at that at the end to see what kind of statistics we get and what people are looking at. Unfortunately, we have no baseline to tell what's happening. The one thing we do know from people, those application names that you get, they are serious. Okay, they paid money. They've given you all their data. They are very serious about your program. In the past, you got lots of CVs. You might not have gotten all your data. You spent a lot of time figuring out are they serious or not. I can guarantee you anybody on your list, they're serious about your program. So that's probably the big difference we have this year versus maybe what we've had in the past.
This question's come up a couple times, Janet, as a possible enhancement. As a reference writer, I couldn't see the due dates for each program. I wrote several letters of different programs, each with varying due dates. If that's easily viewed on PhORCAS, it would be very helpful.
Yeah.
So that has come up, and maybe that's something we can include to see if people would like that to be displayed for each program, and then we can maybe look at how that would look.
Yep. And otherwise, I mean, we really left that up to the applicant to kind of educate the reviewer of when the deadlines were. There's a question here, are applicants in the submitted or in progress status eligible for matching? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody in PhORCAS is eligible for matching because they had to apply to the match to get in, and it's totally up to you. All of them are eligible. I mean, it's totally up to you if you want those people or not. Just because they're in progress, just because you're missing an undergrad transcript, that doesn't mean you don't match with them. So they're all eligible to be ranked in the match. That is one thing with this product that's quite different than we've had in the past, is that we built in a really pretty robust upfront screening mechanism that people who are not eligible don't even get into PhORCAS. So unless they've gone through an ACPE accredited school of pharmacy, they had to actually go through a screening. If they're coming from a foreign school, that they have to prove that they have an FPGEC, which shows that they are eligible for licensure in this country. So we had a pretty rigorous screening mechanism, and if people got approved, they had the appropriate documentations, and then were allowed into the system.
Another question here, Janet. We have one program reporting that student's letter of intent was for another program. So that is very possible. If a student didn't appropriately label their letter of intent, they very well could have accidentally assigned it to another program. This is a process where the applicants are assigning the documents to go to each appropriate institution or residency, and if they don't appropriately assign them, you will very well get a wrong letter of intent or a wrong reference for even that matter.
There's a question here about, really, does the applicant see the decisions made on our application? I mean, everything you're doing in the selection portal, nothing in there is seen to them at all. So any work that you're doing in the selection portal, they can't see any of that. They don't know any of that that's going on. There's a question here, Robert. Did you see the one about, we have these colleges that don't really have GPAs, but their passing is greater than 90%. I think we saw on the example ones that came in at 90 instead of like a 3.5 or 3.4 or whatever. Isn't that, whatever they give you, isn't that how it's presented?
That is right. So whatever the applicants enter into that field is what can be searched on or entered in to be able to be searched.
And keep in mind, I believe it's not a required field, so not all of them may actually enter something into that field. Is that right?
That is correct.
This question, I don't think we can, I'm not sure, is this an educational thing? If we don't want extra letters of reference outside what PhORCAS provides, how can we keep them from being uploaded? I'm not sure how we would address that one. I think what's happening is maybe they're doing it for all their programs, even whether they wanted them or not, a reference letter. This may just be an education thing.
And I would agree with that. I think it would be, because the applicants can assign what they want to go where, so that might be an education thing to make sure that you understand the system, the residency's requirements before you apply. How can I see the pharmacy's school GPA in the search function? I selected all data fields, but the GPA did not appear. It should appear in column I, but my spreadsheet only renders data in columns A through H.
Maybe they should call it.
Yeah, I can. So that particular question was asked. If you want to give us a call, customer support, or even call myself, I can walk you through that process to be able to get that GPA in that spreadsheet. Will we have access to the previous year's application information continuously and easily? For example, for this year, will we be able to log in, say, September and view all data as well as next February? You will access the portal accordingly through the website URL. So if you notice in the URL, back a couple slides that Janet showed, each individual URL, you notice there was a year in there, _12. That was actually it's _13, indicating the cycle. So next year it'll be the same thing with _14. So if you just go to the appropriate year and log in, you'll be able to see that year's information. So the short answer to this question is yes. The long answer is with your username and password for that current year and the previous year, you'll be able to log into the appropriate portal to retrieve that information.
The next one has to do with, is there any way to alert the applicant when they apply to your program that the program requires supplemental materials? We're not going to do that through PhORCAS because there's nothing that you load into PhORCAS, but we are looking at, on our online residency directory, perhaps changing that you might have a special field, is there any supplemental data, and then it would have a separate place you can write in what that is that you require. So we're probably going to distinguish that on our online directory.
Let's see. Can an RPD set a numerical target of completed applications to trigger a cutoff of new applications?
I would be cautious of this one because you're kind of advertising out that your deadline is to a certain date. These people wait till that date and then suddenly apply because that's in their mentality. You said your deadline was this, so therefore it's this. If it's suddenly cut off 3 weeks before that, I just don't know of the, I don't know if it's ethical or I don't know how to explain that, but I would be a little concerned.
You do advertise the date, and the applicants do see that date. You wouldn't be able to enter in a number to have it cut off. You do manage the open and close of your portal. But as Janet's saying, to be fairness, and as we understand the nature of applicants to wait to the last minute, I wouldn't want to advertise a date and then close that date early. You would potentially miss on some very talented applicants that were waiting for the deadline date. There's
a question here about ACPE schools. We have a lot of new schools of pharmacy. We consider anybody that's in the ACPE process as an acceptable school for our accreditation status because they are in process with ACPE if they're listed. So we consider those as okay. So we handle those as students that would normally be like any ACPE accredited school. I think there's a question here, are the applicants aware that the deadline date is based on 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time? I think so, based on the way that they're applying. What do you think, Robert?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
I don't think you really need it on your directory information. I think that the word was out there through our education and materials, and I think they were quite aware of it based on how many late night applications arrived.
So going back to the deadline date and the number, what if a program did not set a deadline date but wanted to say first 50 are considered?
I guess you're taking a chance that are those the first 50 that are the right ones for you. I'm not sure. I guess I think maybe we should talk, Robert, offline whether these are options or not, and maybe we'll put this in our survey.
Yeah.
Do you have any services that do that?
No. Okay. No, we all of them are based off of deadline.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, and we've kind of held you guys longer than the hour, so we appreciate that you hung in there with us. This is being taped, so we will put this up live. We'll make sure that the slides, too, and the whole YouTube video goes on our website so people can access it. And just to make sure everybody knows, on the ASHP website under accreditation and forecast, we do have all the videos, all the information and the tips all out there. We have it divided by whether you're an applicant, a reviewer, or a program director or preceptor. So we thank you for your patience, and we thank you for the good questions, and please answer all our surveys, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.